My name's Bond, James Bond, and I'm licensed to kill. There's a royal premiere tonight. It's the latest Bond, The Spy Who Loved Me. It has women, action, and me. So have you tonight on Nationwide at 6:20. I'm Roger Moore, so watch The Spy Who Loved Me, and you'll love James Bond. It still works on the third take.
Suave and charming, deadly and debonair, saving the world with his finger on the trigger and his tongue firmly in his cheek.
A woman?
No wonder that Sir Roger Moore was the spy who we loved. The man with the golden pun, dispatching villains with a combination of punches and punchlines, gadgets and gags.
I'm now aiming precisely at your groin. Says speak or forever hold your peace.
For over 50 years, Roger Moore was one of Britain's best exports, known across the world for playing iconic heroes on television and film. On the small screen, there was Ivanhoe in the 1950s, Maverick and the Saint in the 60s, and Lord Breck Sinclair in The Persuaders in the 70s. And on the big screen, well, you don't get any bigger than
Bond. James Bond.
And as we'll see in this programme, Roger always seemed destined to play 007. We will also explore how he was one of the most self-effacing stars of all time, always first in line to criticise himself. And we'll be looking at how, once he's handed in his licence to kill, he took on another life-changing mission, which was perhaps his greatest. But let's start with Simon Templar and the Saint. Roger had at one point wanted to produce his own series based on the popular novels by Leslie Charteris. That didn't happen. But when others got the rights, Roger was still cast as the modern-day Robin Hood, who robbed from the corrupt and gave most of the loot back to their victims. This interview took place in 1963 and starts very tellingly.
Mr. Moore, why do you think you were chosen to play the Saint?
Because Sean Connery wasn't available.
No, let's have a truthful answer.
I tried to buy the show 5 years, or 6 years ago. I tried to buy the rights, but I didn't have enough money at the time, or Leslie Charteris wasn't interested in selling to television, which put the price up. So when I was approached, I was delighted to do it. I felt it was a character for a running TV series, that had a built-in premise, sort of part Superman, a natural hero, things one's not allowed to do on television because of censorship. The hero must always be white. I think that a hero, heroes don't exist as far as I'm concerned. I think that people who've read the books know that the Saint was a crook, although we never say it in television. And for this reason, he has a double interest. He has another aspect to his character.
You enjoy packing punches?
Yes, I like to win, because in life I'm a devout coward. I have a yellow streak on my back to prove it. What I really like about playing the Saint is I've been under contract to MGM, to Warner Brothers, and to Columbia, and always playing heroes that were, true blue. And I was never allowed to be photographed with a cigarette or a drink in my hand. And now, I play the Saint, it doesn't matter.
But with all these series you've been in, have you got any stories to tell us about the dangerous moments you've had when you perhaps packed a punch and received a broken leg in return?
Well, when I first started Ivanhoe, we were doing a sword fight on horseback, and this is before I started wearing gloves as the character. And one day it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're out in the field, and we had about 6 or 7 horses charging at me with great screams of, "Hey, Venu!" I went into the battle. Someone came in with a sword straight on my finger, and the nail came shooting off. So I said, "Cut, please," and stopped, and they put an adhesive tape on. And then we went back into action again. The next cut took the adhesive tape off. So they put the adhesive tape back on. By this time, I really don't know what day it is. And we started charging in again. The saddle slipped. I ended up underneath the horse. this shouts of Evelyn, and I'm shouting, cut, cut, please, cut. And I got up and I went home.
Maverick, Ivanhoe, and the Saint, I'd say that Roger Moore never had it so good. Why? What is the attraction behind playing in these long-running series?
Money.
That wasn't the end of the interview. Here, for your eyes only, are some fascinating outtakes displaying Roger's famous sense of humour.
At home, you'll see the glossy finished article. What you don't often see are the moments where we're not quite so smoothly professional.
I think after playing the Saint, you now have enough money to buy the series.
No, actually, I've been paid in Green Shield stamps. And I now have enough to have a trip to Mallorca and buy a washing machine.
The man who created the Saint describes him as having a quick wit, built to pack punches, and with an eye for pretty girls. Is this you? Let's start with the girls first.
Yes.
Go on.
A quick punch now, and I don't know about wit.
You've been in Maverick, you were Beauregard Maverick, you played Ivanhoe, and now the Saint. You must have worked with any number of actresses. You've gone through the whole lot. How do actresses rate as women?
Let's try that again, shall we? Take two.
You've played Beauregard Maverick, Ivanhoe, and now the Saint. You've been through plenty of actresses in your time. How do actresses rate as women?
You can't say that.
I was lucky enough to be one of those actresses who appeared with Roger in The Saint. In fact, Roger and I clicked quite nicely and got on so well, I ended up in several episodes, each time playing a different character, in a different wig. Roger was the ultimate professional, always on top of his lines, putting everyone at ease, cast and crew, because he was just so funny and relaxed. Actors wanted to be on the show because he was such a joy to be with. We knew that a day working with Roger was always going to be enjoyable, and you were guaranteed a good time.
Oh, Simon, you were marvelous.
Well, that's the sort of gratitude I like.
But there was much more to Roger than just fun. He was creative, a hard worker, and always liked to push himself. One little-known fact about The Saint is that several of the episodes, and some very familiar faces, were actually directed by Roger himself.
Well, television for a director is very good. It's good training ground because you have to direct off the top of your head. You have to do your homework at night, be ready for any eventuality, and be able to change. You know, it's all very fast. And I would really love to direct a feature that I am not in, where I don't have to direct myself.
The way I shot was mainly from Simon Templar's point of view. So I would set up a master shot and I would have the camera move over my shoulder, and now I'm back behind the lens and I'm the director and Simon Templar's giving the lines off. And at the end of the day, send everybody home and I do my close-ups talking to the script girl. It was much quicker. And also I didn't have anybody to argue with.
Hi. Whose bunk is that?
Yours.
Or maybe that one is. Haven't decided yet. Right, Hal?
Yeah, that's right.
Then decide now. So you're the Saint.
It's hard to overstate just how successful The Saint was. 6 series, comprising nearly 120 episodes. It was a huge international hit and made Roger one of the most famous faces on the planet. Not bad for a man who was once best known for modelling knitwear.
A friend of mine was a photographer who said that I could earn 30 bob an hour modeling a knitting pattern or something. From then on, I was sort of inundated with work. I managed to push it up to 2 quid an hour. And I got to the stage where I was able to farm out work if I couldn't do it.
The jumper modelling meant Michael Caine would nickname Roger the Big Nit. So how did the Big Nit become an acting knight? Roger never liked talking about his private life. He rarely discussed his 4 marriages, or the fact that for a while he had a wife far more famous than he was, the world singing star Dorothy Squires. But this exchange with Michael Parkinson does at least throw some light on how he got the acting bug.
I've always wondered about you. You were a good-looking child.
Was I a good-looking
Yes.
child?
Yes.
No, I was rather fat, I think.
Were you?
Yeah.
And spotty.
Fat and spotty. And my father, I was a little overweight. My father always used to get furious with me with, you know, schoolboys' raincoats, those blue ones. And he would pull that belt and he'd say I'd look like a sack of, you can't say it, tied up ugly in the middle.
Yeah. What were their ambitions for you, your parents? Because your dad was a
To get
policeman.
thin, I think.
To get thin, yeah. Did they have any theatrical ambition for you?
No. My father was keen on amateur dramatics, and he was in the police, and he organised the Dramatic Society for E Division, and he used to produce and direct and star and do the makeup and build the scenery. It was a one-man show.
You went, of course. I mean, you started acting, but then your career was, as it was interrupted by national service. You went into the forces. You were a commissioned as well. Were you a dashing subaltern?
Well, yes, I suppose I was. By that time, I'd lost weight. The only reason they commissioned me, I looked good in uniform.
Really?
I looked like a hero. You know.
Did you
Little did they know.
Did you enjoy it, the army life?
Well, I was determined not to. My first 6 weeks, you know, basic training, and I think Bury St Edmunds. It was really Bury St Roger up there. It was so cold. And the sergeant would always say to me, I knew nothing about the army except my mother's family army. My mother was born in India in barracks. My grandfather was the senior RSM in the British Army in the First World War. And so I was rather disgraced not wanting to go. And I was dragged in. I had yellow jaundice. And I was doing a season ashore at Cambridge. And you know when you have jaundice, you have peculiar symptoms apart from yellow eyes and,
Yes.
and a jaundiced skin, that when they ask you to deposit, you know, over there, says the doctor.
Yes.
And it was a very strange sort of colour, and they passed me A1.
Really?
Yeah. So now you know why they commissioned me. They were desperate.
They put you in the West?
Yeah. No, but the sergeant would always say to me, I remember he says, I call for you, lad. And I thought he meant that I was going in the sort of the optician's branch of the medical corps. What he meant was intelligence corps.
Yeah.
And anyway, they commissioned me. And then I was fortunate enough to get transferred to entertainment.
When you went to Hollywood, was this your great ambition to get to the film capital?
Well, I think Hollywood well, in those days, I don't know today, but as a struggling young actor, Hollywood, I mean, you know, if you're English, was absolutely wonderful place to go.
Mm. And what was your first impression of it? Did it live up to expectation or what?
Oh, yes, it was everything I imagined. I would always walk up to people like Gary Cooper. I thought I knew them. I'd been brought up with them on the screen, you know. And so I'd say, hello, you know. And you wonder why you get the blank from.
What do you remember your first movie?
The last time I saw Paris.
Is that all you want to say about it?
Yeah, I remember it distinctly because I was signed by MGM. And I arrived to start the contract on April the 1st, April Fool's Day, which was an appropriate day for me to arrive in Hollywood. And I did it with Elizabeth Taylor and Van Johnson. And I knew nothing about pictures. And I remember Dick Brooks had a reputation of being a shouting director. And he was really going mad my first day on the set, not with me, but he was going mad with the censor. Or the girl from the censor's office, because she'd come down to say that the camera was too high and Liz Taylor's cleavage was exposing too much, and he started in such language. I was quite embarrassed. It was terrible.
Well, you were, in fact, of course, you were in that line of the good-looking English leading actor, weren't you? Probably the last in that line, weren't you, to go to Hollywood? I mean, there was, what, Stu Granger for you?
Stuart Granger, James Mason, Michael Wilding.
Yes.
All at MGM and Edmund Purdom.
Yes, right, yes. What was the reception like for you there? Was there any hostility at all?
Well, they weren't going to put up with any more from an Englishman, you know, and so I learned to smile a great deal. Because I can remember my first job in rep when I came out of the army, the director said, "You're not very good, you know." He says, "Smile when you come on." So
smiled ever since.
Did you have a sort of clenched look about you then?
Yeah, I guess so. I remember in Hollywood, when I was going to play the Duke of Wellington's nephew in a film called The Miracle, they said, would you mind sort of working on your English accent? I said, what's wrong with my accent? What they meant was that I spoke with my teeth together. And I muttered all the time like that because I was afraid of what was going to come out.
There's a marvellous phrase you used once. You said that after the movies and MGM, you went through the treadmill of television. And in fact, actually, it was a treadmill for you, but it did in fact establish you, didn't it? I mean, things like The Saint, particularly.
Well, The Saint, I mean, I made 120 episodes, I think, and it was shown in every country in the world apart from Red China and Russia. So it had at some point an enormous audience. Not that they necessarily liked you, but they knew who you were.
Roger filmed his final episode of The Saint in 1969, the same year that he married his third wife, Louisa Mattioli, after several years of waiting for Dorothy Squires to grant him a divorce. It felt like a time of change, and Roger was determined not to make another TV series. But as a certain other actor would also learn, never say never again. Before Roger knew it, he was starring in The Persuaders, and there were different accounts of how he was persuaded into it.
I had said I was not going to do it anymore. I thought I'd had enough. Lou Grade called me and said, I've sold The Persuaders. And I said, Lou, but I said I didn't want to do it. So he stuck a cigar in my mouth and said, the country needs the money. He says, think of the Queen. He said, you can have any leading man you want. He said, I get Rock Hudson, I can get Glenn Ford, I get Tony Curtis, a couple of other names. I said, you know, I think that probably Rock Hudson and I are too similar, you know, in type as leading men. But Tony Curtis, I think, is a great actor and has great humor, and I think that would work. So he said, all right, and we signed Tony.
And here's Lou Grade's version of events. He remembers things a little differently.
And Roger was always suspicious that when I went to America that I would do a deal with him for a television series again. And he knew I was going to America. He said, Lou, I'll do anything you want, but no more television. I've spent 7 years on The Saint, and I don't want to do any more. And when Roger Moore says something, he means it. And I'll give you an example. I was in America, this time at ABC. And I'm talking to them. They said, we need a show for 10 o'clock on Wednesday night. I said, what about Roger Moore? Now he's telling me he's not going to do television anymore. They said, well, Roger Moore's been on The Saint, he's been on the 2 networks, you know. I said, what happens if I get Tony Curtis? He says, you have a deal, 22 episodes. I call Roger Moore. I said, Roger, I'm in trouble. I've committed a series of 22 episodes with Tony Curtis and you, a series called The Persuaders. He said, Lou, I'm not going to do any more television. I'll do anything you want, but not television. I said, just a moment, Roger. Opened my drawer and I pulled out a substantial check. I said, Roger, this is something to start with. And without a flicker of an eyelid, he said, when do I start?
Well, we played it tongue-in-cheek. As I play most heroes tongue-in-cheek, you know, because I really don't see myself as a hero. Although I play them as though, I play them as though, you know, it's all a joke. And I think you have to sort of make the audience feel that, hey, listen, it's all right to laugh.
Daniel, I cannot tell you how disappointed I am in us.
Us? What? Wait a minute, you didn't give her
100,000 big ones.
That's the most conniving, dirty... Wait a minute. She only needed 100 grand, which I gave her.
And I gave her.
When we drank champagne, it wasn't ginger ale, and so I was rather inclined to drink too much and eat too much.
Lou Gray did once say that Roger and Tony weren't as friendly off-screen as they were on. But that, it seems, wasn't the case.
Tony had, at the beginning, had not done television, and I think he had a sort of a feeling that, well, this was a step down in the world from being an enormous movie star. His ideas gradually changed on that. We had quite a lot of fun bouncing off one another, but I think Lou sort of thought, well, yes, I will say that, because that makes it more attractive that they would then look to see what was going on between them.
As with The Saints, Roger directed a couple of episodes of The Persuaders, and he was also responsible for some of the fashions on display, which were very much of their time.
I had a credit for designing the clothes. Actually, it was all my cloth, because I was on the board of a mills in Bradford, Pearson and Foster, which unfortunately didn't materialise as a successful enterprise, probably because of my involvement. But all the cloth was mine, and it was made up by my then tailor, Cyril Castle. Yes, I would say, I'd like this sort of look and that look. And if you remember back in the beginning of the 70s, late 60s, sort of men were rather extravagant in their dress. We had the kipper ties and big knots, or else scarf around the neck, flared trousers. We were pretty leery.
The lightweight nature of The Persuaders, and the fact that it looked so much fun to make, added to a general sense that Roger may have been a big star, but perhaps wasn't much of an actor. It was a constant theme throughout his career that over the years he really didn't help to dispel, as this little selection demonstrates.
You're very self-deprecating about your acting. Why is that defensive?
Yes, it's defensive. I always try to say it before anybody else does.
But if you didn't say it, perhaps nobody else would.
I never thought of that. Maybe I started the wrong way.
Why do you always put yourself down when people ask you about acting? Because you do, don't you?
Well, I've stopped doing that.
You have?
No, I now say I'm marvellous.
You do? That's all right. What caused the change of heart?
The critics started believing.
You always claim that you can't act.
No, I didn't say I used to. Then I started saying I could.
Yeah.
And then they started arguing with me. So I've gone back the other way.
Roger's modesty, false or otherwise, was maybe one more reason that people loved him. He was, of course, being unfair to himself. Between The Saint and The Persuaders, his performance in the 1970 thriller The Man Who Haunted Himself was very highly praised. In fact, he had two roles, an uptight businessman and his wild alter ego.
Yes. I'll go to the police. Daddy, what's going on out here? Who on earth is that?
Talking about the film years later, Roger once again criticised his own performance, although on this occasion, that provided an interesting insight into how seriously he took the role.
This is the one reading of a line that I hate when I say to the boys, Jamie. Basil said, no, say it to Jim. And as I look at it, I can hear myself imitating him, and it's the wrong reading of the line. I'd like to go back and revoice it. Here's the line coming up now. Oh, dear.
Eve, Mike, Jamie.
The Man Who Haunted Himself was Roger's personal favourite of all his films, and helped show that you don't last as long as he did and become a national treasure without talent. It also contains this little exchange.
So there has been a leak.
Well, I don't know. I'm getting too old for this jungle. How could it happen, Bill?
Come on, Charles. Espionage isn't all James Bond and Her Majesty's Secret Service. Industry goes in for it too, you know.
That was one of the many moments dotted throughout Roger's career that point to it being almost fated that he played James Bond. The references to 007 are many. From the contents of a suitcase in The Persuaders.
Very clever. Arranged by Schubert, I should imagine. Has all his trademarks. And his rather bizarre sense of humor. All the James Bond books.
To this example of character confusion in The Saint.
Ah, Miss Hill, come on in.
The keys.
You fixed it.
Yes, I did.
Well done.
It worked out just as you said it would. The Joysons have left, and this apartment is available from tomorrow for your friends in the FBI. I just can't wait for my next assignment. Me, working for James Bond.
Hmm?
I'm so excited. You're not just teasing me, are you? You really are James Bond.
There's even a full-on spoof in this comedy encounter with Millicent Martin from 1963. With its female Russian agent, it could almost be considered a dress rehearsal for The Spy Who Loved Me.
Over there, Mr. Bond?
Yes, well, I am on holiday. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Smith.
Oh!
Yes, and I'm 007, as if you didn't know.
James Bond, what are you doing at my hotel?
And what, may I ask, is Sonia Slakova, Russia's master spy, staying at my hotel?
Why have you come to spy on me?
I might ask you the same question.
You mean you don't know why you've come to spy on me? Typical British intelligence, muddled through as usual.
Oh, you Russians always were a little thick in the head. If you're here to spy on me, you must know that I'm on holiday.
Oh, don't give me that. James Bond is never on holiday. Everybody knows that. Besides, I haven't come to spy on you.
In 1973, it finally became a reality. George Lazenby's stint as Bond hadn't worked out. Sean Connery's comeback was for one film only. Producers Harry Saltzman and Cubby Broccoli needed a new 007. Roger lost the weight he'd gained from champagne and high living in The Persuaders. He had a haircut and accepted his license to kill. He was 45.
Well, I came into it after he was very well established. And obviously I couldn't play it in the same way, so I had to have a different approach. And I'm a lighter sort of actor than Sean.
How did you categorize? Did you think a great deal about how you were going to approach this part? Did you attempt to motivate yourself?
Well, I thought about
sort of
money.
method school of acting stuff. Just the money, eh?
No.
Yeah.
My only worry ever about doing it was being, the comparison with Sean, was that I would say to myself, my name is Bond, James Bond, but I would hear it in my mind, my name is Bond, James Bond. You mustn't do that. Very difficult.
Have you changed the role at all? Have you considered you playing it exactly the same way each time?
I think we have injected a little more humour.
Yeah, it seems to me to be more and more for laughs and more enormous effects.
Well, I think, you see, Bond films are so outrageous, the stunts are so outrageous, everything is, beyond belief. I mean, there is no such thing as a spy who can walk anywhere in the world and every bartender recognizes him and says, Mr. Bond, a vodka martini shaker, not served. It's really, spies aren't like that, are they? They're sort of unknown faces that would pass in a crowd and not be noticed. Real spies. So you might be good for the part. No, anyway. Thank you. On my side.
It's hard to imagine now, but back then there were real fears that without Connery, the Bond series was doomed. With Live and Let Die, Roger brought it back to life. Each of his films earning huge sums at the box office as his popularity increased. But as he would recall years later, his first Bond action sequence meant things were nearly all over before they'd begun.
In fact, I very nearly didn't do it. The first day shooting, or before we started the first day shooting, I was rehearsing with this jet ski boat. And they turn, you know, on a sixpence, jet boats. But they have to be in full power when you do it. You have to say, I'm going to turn now, and so you have to have the guts to say, push it right forward, give it all the acceleration, and you come around. That is great. If you're going and the engine's cut out, you don't have anything to steer with. There's no rudder, it's going from the engines. And so you go in a straight line at the speed the engine's cut out. And this is what happened. We went around a bend on a bayou. And the engine's cut out, and I just went straight into a boat hut or something that they'd stupidly stuck on the edge of the water. And I had about 10 seconds, you know, as I saw this coming, and what am I going to do? I could do this or that, and by the time I thought about it, I'd smashed my teeth on the thing and being thrown into the back of the boat. I walked with a stick for 3 weeks. I was very fortunate I didn't lose all my teeth.
Everybody thought these were done by stunt people.
Well, I had to learn to drive the boat. It wasn't until I was on my way to the first press screening of Bond, I suddenly got nerves. Oh dear, this is not the time to get nerves. And after about 5 minutes, I said, well, they don't like it, they don't like it. You know, I go back to modeling sweaters.
Live and Let Die was a hit. But as ever, Roger had his critics who preferred Connery's toughness to Roger's less serious approach. He addresses this in the next interview, which was filmed on the set of the 1975 comedy That Lucky Touch, and which coincided with his second Bond film, The Man with the Golden Gun.
Can we talk about the knocks? I mean, I don't know how you react to a good or bad publicity, but the Bond films, inevitably, when you took over from Sean Connery, because it was new and because it was different, people all said, oh, well, Roger Moore is not my idea of 007, and he's not like Sean Connery, and it's all a great failure. I mean, do you mind that kind of hammering?
No, not really, because I say it before they do. No, it is always nice to get a good notice.
You do like a good notice, yeah.
Well, of course you do, but you don't take any notice if they're bad. And so by the same token, I shouldn't take any notice of the good ones.
Yes.
Not that there are many, but still, people still pay to see the films. I think the first time they went to see Live and Let Die was just to see if I was going to be as bad as they thought I would be. Now, this one is doing equal business, in some countries even better. So maybe it's a different audience that hadn't seen Live and Let Die. You never can tell.
Have you played much comedy before?
According to the critics, all the time. But anything that was seriously called a comedy, no, I haven't.
Is comedy, and I'm shouting a bit because of I think they're rearranging the sets back.
Well, they're all critics.
Is playing comedy much more difficult than playing Bond?
Well, it's an entirely different technique. The important thing of comedy is timing. It really is very simple. Not that Bond makes people cry, but it's very simple, you know, to do drama and make people have tears welling up in their eyes. To make people laugh is difficult.
Yes. Would it be so that because you have to do a lot of different takes, have to repeat things very often, I mean, does a funny script end up, in the end, as totally unfunny?
You start feeling you're being unfunny. It's very difficult. When you start, it's the difference between filming for television and filming for cinema, where you have much more time in the cinema to rehearse, whereas filming for television, you know, which I did for so many years, that your performance is off the top of your nut. You go in and you really want to shoot on the first rehearsal when it's bright and sparkling. Filming for the cinema is rather like the theatre, where you have a long time to get over the off the top of the head performance to get into the depth of it. then stop being bored with it and make it come to life in every take. And this is concentration, and that's all you require is concentration.
Luckily, Roger was concentrating during one moment filming The Man with the Golden Gun, which resulted in him becoming a real life-saving hero.
All the time I had trouble with explosives. We were shooting on what's called Phi Island, is now called James Bond Island in the Gulf of Siam. And
big tourist destination.
Oh, it was then. I mean, the Japanese tourists would come from the other side of this little tiny island, and we're trying to fight them back. And one day we were shooting the whole sequence where it's all blown up. And I said, now, where are the cameras going to be? There was a camera there, and there's a camera here. I said, oh, rather exposed out there. Oh, well, there's not going to be anybody there. And we were left on the island on our own with a pyromaniac explosive expert who was setting off these. And there were 5 big explosions. And the first one was going to go off as I came through a door. They said, so you come through that, and I was with Britt Ekland, who was wearing a bikini. There was nothing to grab hold of. And my hands now were getting rather wet because I was waiting for the next explosion to go. And I ran, dragging Britt, but she was sweating and my hand was sweating, and she was left standing there. And I was halfway around the corner, and I realized, was I going to be Bond? Was I going to be Roger Moore? Was I? I went back, actually, and I got her. And when the final explosion went, the flames came around the side of this rock overhang. And I felt all the little tiny hairs on her back. She was wearing a bikini. And it all just crisped up.
Extraordinary.
It was not very pleasant.
I hope you can swim. Good night.
This way.
Roger had originally been contracted to make just 3 Bond adventures. His third was the one he liked best. For many, The Spy Who Loved Me was the Bond where Roger stepped out of Sean Connery's shadow and established a role as his own. A different 007, but certainly not an inferior one. The film is a cocktail as potent as any vodka martini, a perfect blend of incredible gadgets, exciting action, exotic locations, with a gorgeous Bond girl, Barbara Bach, and an unforgettable baddie in the shape of Jaws, and a jaw-dropping opening.
One particular stunt which got a guy $40,000 for one jump. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, they wanted me to do it, you see.
Yes.
And I said, well, I couldn't do it for $40,000.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't live to spend it. But it was to go off a 5,000-foot precipice.
On skis?
On skis.
When cinema goers saw this for the first time, there were reports of them standing in their seats and cheering wildly.
And did he do it in one take?
One take, and his last.
That was Roger Moore joking, of course. And typically, he would make light of another of those incidents where something went horribly wrong and could have ended very nastily.
There's a scene where Kurt Jurgens, who was the villain, is going to shoot a rocket at me under the table. That's right. And I was supposed to be standing behind the chair. And I said, I don't think that it's quite so dramatic as if I'm sitting in the chair. Well, they'd built behind the chair steel so that I would be protected from the explosions. It didn't occur to Lunatic Moore. I sat in the chair and went, and the explosions went just before I got out of the chair. And so where most people have one hole, I have 3.
Excellent.
And
I knew you were a versatile character.
It was very painful, I don't mind telling you. But there were 3 terrible burns here, and I had to go for about a month.
Can you give us a look? I mean, the audience don't really believe that, I feel.
Well, it's now just scar tissue.
Oh, it's a disappointment, really.
But you know, at the end of every shooting day, I had to go to see the nurse at the studio and have my Vaseline dressings changed.
Oh.
Very embarrassing.
How lovely.
Yeah.
Sit down, Mr. Bunn.
Your time's running out, Stromberg.
Yours too, Mr. Bond. Yours too. And faster than you think.
You've shot your boat, Stromberg. Now it's my turn.
Now for an example of his famous charm. There aren't many stars who would tolerate being told that an element of their work is appalling. But Roger doesn't even bat an eyelid.
The script itself, I mean, it's deliberately appalling, isn't it, really? Every other line, you've got a gag, and you say it in such a way which just about saves it.
Well, that's it. The whole point is this is a romp. It is fun. It's entertainment. This is the problem today, I think, with a vast number of films. They are not entertaining. Yeah. And I like, when I go to the cinema, to be entertained. I do not want to come out feeling miserable. And I think a Bond film, you usually come out having had a good couple of hours of laughter and action.
Ian Fleming, who wrote the book, originally thought of you, actually, as the perfect James Bond. One of the producers told me that. Now, Bond is slightly ruthless in the books. He's certainly very, very vicious. He's a man of action. He adores beautiful women. What about you?
Well, that's why he thought I would be right for the part, because that's what I'm like.
You can fool me. What are you like?
It's an acting part, isn't it? You know, they do say I don't act, but really, you know, I'm the world's worst coward, and of course, I look terribly brave. I mean, that is acting.
Yeah. The rumours are you were contracted to do 3 Bonds. Mm-hmm. This is your 3rd. And the rumours are that there's a bit of hassle going on now about you doing any more. What's the truth about that? Are you going to do another Bond or what?
Well, we're negotiating, but unfortunately I was swimming a couple of weeks ago and got an ear infection, and I don't hear too well.
What's the problem? Do you not want to do it again?
No. It's a problem of dates, that I really want to know when we're going to start, and I have to lock out 6 months to a year of my career or my life to make the Bond film, and so I want to know when exactly it's going.
The dancing around Roger's contract would, of course, continue for 4 more films, in which the humour quota increased progressively. Moonraker sent Bond into space in an attempt to cash in on the success of Star Wars. To some, that was more believable than a motorised gondola travelling through Venice and a double-taking pigeon. And in Octopussy, where Bond disarms a nuclear bomb dressed in a clown costume, it seemed to represent where the franchise had found itself.
I have a feeling the scriptwriters have written more and more humour to accommodate your interpretation of the part. Would you agree?
I suppose you have to make it funny if I'm in it. No, it's quite often since I've been doing it, and they may have done it with Sean as well, I don't know, I wasn't there, but a joke may be indicated in a script that doesn't work within the context of the scene when you're playing it or the set, and so be it Guy Hamilton or Lewis Gilbert or John Glenn now directing, is say, you know, what do you want to say here? And do you have any ideas? And I say, have you got any ideas? And we probably do 6 or 7 takes, throwing in different punchlines, which I enjoy. I mean, that's an inventive part of playing it.
Bring tears to your eyes. Stinging in the rain.
That's not funny, 007.
Did you get an extra salary for the writing?
No, but it's a good idea.
Roger, I wonder if you have made Bond less lethal. He seems to me now to be less of a cold killer, more reluctant. I know he's still licensed to kill, more reluctant to kill. Do you sense that as you pass through the films?
Well, I always played it with a certain reluctance to kill, because My only key to playing a Bond that I had from the books was at the beginning of one of Fleming's stories, where it said Bond was on his way back from Mexico, where he had eliminated somebody. He didn't like killing particularly, but he took a pride in doing his job well. And that's my key to it. I don't like killing.
As these films go on, they get more and more spectacular, no doubt about it, with Octopussy. You have the most incredible train and plane chases in which you're obliged to cling to both. How do you manage to do it? It's no secret that you're past your 21st birthday.
Am I? I didn't know that.
I read it.
How do I manage to do it? I tell you, I have glue on my shoes. That's how I stick on planes and trains.
But it must be quite an exertion for a man who perhaps would prefer to play chess or do the Times crossword.
No, yes, well, I don't know. I suppose I keep myself in shape. I always have done.
As a man, Roger, you are rich, and you are famous, and you look amazingly comfortable. Is life really that good?
Yes.
Anything
I've been
missing?
very lucky.
Is there anything missing?
Well, I suppose from the ego point of view, it would be nice to sort of getting wonderful reviews in a marvelous play somewhere. But that is not the path I took. When I had the choice between Hollywood and Stratford, I took Hollywood. I was greedy.
There were, of course, other films between the Bonds, like the military adventure The Wild Geese, which saw Roger comfortably holding his own alongside acting greats Richard Burton and Richard Harris. Oh, and another hit, The Cannonball Run, where he wholeheartedly embraced his talent for comedy and spoofed himself completely, playing a character who claims he is the actor Roger Moore.
I'm looking at my son, Seymour Goldfarb Jr., son of Seymour Goldfarb, God rest his soul, and heir to the Goldfarb Girdle's fortune. And what is he doing? Walking around, acting like he was some goy movie star named Roger Moore. And for this, I sent you to the best schools. And now, this. The sleep-in maid found it under your pillow this morning. What is the meaning of this?
The meaning, Mother dear, is a quick death. I warned you not to interfere in my affair.
Seymour, put that away. It's liable to go off.
I'm terribly sorry, Mother, but you know too much.
No.
Zykerzit, Mama.
When it came to Roger's final Bond outing, A View to a Kill, many people, including himself, felt that at 56 he was possibly past his best. And age wasn't the only difficult thing he had to contend with. There was another problem, in the shape of a rather tricky co-star, Grace Jones.
I'm afraid my diplomatic charm was stretched to the limit with Grace. Every day in her dressing room, which was adjacent to mine, she played very loud music. One day I snapped. I marched into her room, pulled the plug out, and then went back to my room, picked up a chair and flung it at the wall. The dent is still there.
On December the 3rd, 1985, 12 years after Live and Let Die, Roger announced that he was retiring as James Bond. The end of an era. He was then 58, and said at the prospect of more bullets and bombs and girls half his age, he was starting to get a bit daft.
I was beginning to get a bit long in the tooth.
You felt it?
Well, I didn't feel it, but I felt I looked it.
You've been blown up and banged about enough, and
well, you know, you start
just started to seem like hard work.
Well, it was lovely in the afternoon. You start, you know, if they're going to have a leading lady that really matches up to you in age, she is already going to be a grandmother. That's not quite what James Bond is about.
He'd kept the franchise going, created a new generation of Bond fans, and generated millions of pounds for the British film industry. But after all those years in a tuxedo, it was time for a change.
'cause I'm free. Nothing's worrying me.
The stage was beckoning, and in 1989 it was announced that Roger was to join a cast that included Michael Ball in the new Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, Aspects of Love.
Can you give us a quick tune?
Yeah, give us a song.
Carol.
Go on, give us. Just a hum, even. Just a hum.
That's it. That's my range.
His reluctance to sing at that press conference perhaps provided a clue as to what was going to happen next.
On to some showbiz news now, because Roger Moore has announced that he's to leave the cast of Andrew Lloyd Webber's latest musical, Aspects of Love. The show is already a sellout. It's due to open with a royal premiere in front of the Queen in less than 4 weeks' time, but now it's lost one of its biggest stars.
It could have been a major career embarrassment, but Roger was refreshingly open about why he dropped out.
I booked the seat and everything.
Did you get the money back?
Well, no. Well, yes, I demanded my money back. Because you were going to sing. And what happened?
I got cold feet.
But that's not like you. You usually take your chances and everything.
No, yeah, but other people were relying on notes that I might be singing to come in with it. You know, there was... Singing Lloyd Webber is not like singing Another Bride, Another June in pantomime. Singing Lloyd Webber is opera. And I did not have the experience or the courage to do it.
Did it give you an awful lot of heart searching? Because I wouldn't have thought you're the kind of person who accepts something and then says, no, I can't do it.
Well, I didn't think I could do it in the first place. You see, it was Andrew saying, you can do it. He saw me on Dame Edna singing with Dennis Healy. And I think he meant Dennis Healy would have been right for the part.
Aspects of Love in Roger's personal life were also going through a change. A diagnosis of prostate cancer in 1993 prompted him to think hard about his future, and as he said, make some hefty decisions. One of them involving the end of his marriage to Louisa and marrying for the 4th time to Christina Tholstrup, a Scandinavian socialite. Another major decision was to take a step back from acting in favour of a new role as a goodwill ambassador for UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund. His friend Audrey Hepburn had asked him to get involved, and after travelling around the world's most glamorous locations playing Bond, now he was visiting some of the toughest places on the planet, trying to raise awareness of the problems faced by children.
The reason I became involved with UNICEF was, an interest in children and in their needs. And I'd done a number of things for UNICEF and things that were related to UNICEF. But I got a lot of facts and figures. And I thought, this is, they're just facts and figures. You know, the fact that 40,000 children die a day.
A day?
And yes. Every 4 seconds, a child dies. And while since you asked me that question, 3 have died. It's a frightening thought. Anyway, I wanted to see for myself what conditions were. And the only way I could do that would be an official representative. And so I signed up in New York as got the UN passport, the laissez-passer, and my button, and a contract. I get paid $1 a year, but it's free of tax. And off I went to Central America. And part of the things that I was doing was presenting the media awards, something that UNICEF gives to members of the press and television who have brought the plight of children to the world's attention during that previous year. And so I would have, in various countries, prepared speeches from UNICEF with the UNICEF message, and I found after the second country, those words were words, and I then had to speak from what I saw. I used to watch Audrey Hepburn, and I always felt that she slightly overdid it in her fundraising speeches, until I ended up in a hospital in Salvador visiting. And I realized that she underplayed it. It became one of the toughest things I've ever faced in my life. To see what man can do, not only to fellow man, but to children. And to see the victims of kids that have trod on mines, that have trod on grenades. And you suddenly say, this life is fairly lousy, that people can do this. So it gives you more reason, more passion to get out and do the fundraising.
And Roger later explained how visiting impoverished war zones changed his view of himself.
Small, insignificant, and rather ashamed that I had traveled so much making films and ignored the poverty and the hardship that was going on around me.
Was it a wake-up call?
Oh, very much so. And I was exceedingly grateful to Audrey for having steered me in the right direction. The one thing that I now am so violently opposed to, the use of weapons and mines, that I didn't like that image of me going around the world holding the Walther PPK. And it appears rather heroic, and it's not.
The license to kill may not have been heroic, but Roger's long association with UNICEF certainly was. And he was suitably recognised for that work by a grateful nation. First with the CBE in 1999, and then with a knighthood 4 years later.
It's a recognition of UNICEF and the thousands of volunteers that are in UNICEF who never get recognized at all. It's just happened I have a name that became popular.
There's no arguing with that. And just how popular Roger was became even more abundantly clear with the sad announcement in May this year that he had died at home in Switzerland after a short battle with cancer, aged 89. The wave of affection expressed for this charming man was overwhelming and came from all corners of the globe. Perhaps not our best actor, but certainly one of our best loved and a true national treasure. Roger was adored for the twinkle in his eye, the joy his performances gave us, and of course that irreplaceable sense of fun. The song was right. Nobody does it better. So let's raise a glass and an eyebrow to the great Sir Roger Moore.
Second World War drama starring Roger Moore. Escape to Athena on BBC Two next.